All right, good morning. Welcome to Sidelines on this Monday morning. It is August 1st. Hard to believe, man. Summer is flying by. First day of practice around all over the South. It's kind of like Christmas morning. For the players, maybe not so, but they've been working out. They know what they're getting into. Rob Brown here with you from the broadcasting live from our studios at Red River Ford Toyota in Wynne, Arkansas. And we'll be with you 8 to 10 a.m. Central, 9 to 11 a.m. east of the Chattahoochee, the Caney Fork, the Johns River, anything in the Eastern time zone, Tommy boy, as we are every Monday through Saturday. Hey, follow us on Twitter at Sidelines_live. You follow us, we'll follow you. Appreciate everybody doing that. Facebook, Sidelines, Instagram, sidelines.live, YouTube, and LinkedIn. If you're watching us on the live stream, thank you. If you're listening, thank you. I want to thank our sponsors. I also like Gateway Tire and Service Centers. We go the distance for our customers and in the communities where we do business. And the Boy Scouts of America. Support the Boy Scouts. They do great things. Get involved. I was a scout. My dad, an Eagle Scout. Lots of people were scouts, learned about camping, hunting, fishing, just great things. You learn how to cook, learn how to figure things out. And Reef Forest, Mississippi. Hey, let's get started right now. Mitch Davis of the MitchDavisShow.com. Mitch, you are out there beating the pavement, finding the stories, hundreds of basketball games live in the flesh in the last few years, lots of college baseball games, lots of college football games. You love to write. Hey, True Grit journalism, important. We got to have it. What's your take right now as we get ready to kick off practice time for another college football season? I'm ready for it. I know you are. What are you writing about? Mitch, are you there? I hope you're there. Mitch, anybody? Well, okay. But anyway, college football season, the start of it, it couldn't get here soon enough because we've had to talk so much about NIL and the portal. And now it's going to be about the games themselves. And that's what I think everybody's been looking forward to is let's talk about depth charts. Let's talk about the things that matter the most. And Mitch, let me know when you're there. Okay. All right. I tell you what, I don't know where everybody is this morning. Hope everybody's with us. Jimmy, are you there? All right. Okay, we are broadcasting here from Red River Ford Toyota in Wynne, Arkansas. Hope everybody can be with us. And I'm telling you right now, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to be right back.
Kitchens and bathrooms make a home, and the design teams at Kitchens Unlimited know how to make kitchens and baths. They know it all because they have seen it all. Kitchens Unlimited has been designing and remodeling the Mid-South's kitchens and baths for over 50 years. Check out their showroom at 3550 Summer Avenue or visit them on the web at kitchensunlimited.net.
If you have a crash, dent or ding, go to G.E. Patterson and BBG for Tom Martin's Body Shop.
Come on down to Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company located on Historical Square in Collierville, Tennessee. Hewlett & Dunn is the second largest Filson dealer in the Southeast, stocked with Southern brands you know and trust. And a new inventory arriving all the time. Do yourself or someone you know and love a favor and visit this store. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
As an agricultural producer, no matter where you farm, minimum tillage is a primary concern each and every season. At House Industries in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, we manufacture equipment to help you maximize efficiency when planting and watering a crop. Pieces like the pulverizer, bedder roller, 3-bar do-all, and bed conditioner assist you in optimizing seatbed preparation and ultimately your bottom line. Visit HouseIndustriesInc.com to locate the dealer nearest you.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
Let's go. Mitch Davis is on with Jimmy Hodge, Rob Brown here with you. Let's talk some college football. Mitch, what are you writing about right now? And what are some things we can look for out of Memphis, Kentucky, and your deep dig on Deep South college football? Okay. You know what? Mitch, Jimmy, can you hear me? All right. Right. I'm telling you right now, guys, I hope everybody is there with us. Jimmy, are you there? Okay. Okay. All right, Mitch Davis with us right now on the morning edition of Sidelines. And Monday mornings are fun. Hey, something happens, you just push right on through. Mitch, let's talk some college football right now. I know you got a little bit of time. Let's find out. We talked last week with Lonnie Demery of Kentucky Sports Report about the Wildcats. I met him down at SEC Media Days. Always interesting to get different angles. I think he's been to 17 of them. But what right now are you seeing on the landscape of college football that gets you excited?
Yeah, I tell you, Rob, I followed the SEC Media Days, got to listen to your questions there that were being asked with Mark Stoops and other guys. I'm really excited. Other than the SEC, I'm really, really excited about the Sun Belt Conference this year. That's one of the most underrated leagues in all of college football. You've got about 4 or 5 teams that have a legitimate shot at being that group of 5 New Year's Six contender. You know, you have South Alabama, who's going to be vastly improved. You got Appalachia State, who opens their season against North Carolina. You've got James Madison coming from the FCS. The Sun Belt, Arkansas State's going to be good, coached by Coach Jones. Coastal Carolina, everybody knows the names of Jamie Chadwell and the Mullets there at Coastal Carolina. And obviously in the SEC, it's going to be a fun year for the Kentucky Wildcats. It's also going to be a great year for both Mississippi State and Ole Miss. I think football in the Magnolia State there in the SIP is going to be a revitalized, revamped college football atmosphere. I think it's going to be a great thing for the state of Mississippi.
Mitch, let's look here like at Memphis. They're a program that a couple of years ago they had 25 signees. Somebody just Christmas treated, and just went right down the list, gave them 25 3-stars. But you've got to develop your players. But let's face it, out of 3,300 kids a year that'll sign Division I scholarships, maybe 33 of them will be a 5-stars. Between 350 and 400 will make the 4-star grade. So right now you're down around 2,900. So the other 2,900 are 3 stars or 2 stars, or they're not rated. You can't look at everybody. So let's talk real quick. Ryan Silverfield, he's back. Last year they didn't get to play in their bowl game. What is Memphis going to do? We know about the quarterback situation last year. They going to start off with the same lineup?
Rob, it's interesting because the Tigers returned 6 back on offense. I like Javon Ivory to be a difference maker on the wide receiver core. Obviously, Eddie Lewis is also going to be a difference maker. But then the conversation on offense shifts to Seth Hennigan. What can Seth Hennigan do? We saw it last year against Mississippi State. He had a great performance. He he tore up Mississippi State. Had an impressive freshman season last year. But what's going to happen to the Tiger offense when the other teams around the American figure them out? Obviously, when you look at the American, you have to talk about teams like Cincinnati and Houston and SMU and East Carolina. East Carolina is my sleeper pick to win the AAC this year. I think Coach Houston's got a great ball club up there in Greenville, North Carolina. On defense, Tigers will turn 4 guys. Wadelis Duckworth, Greg Rubin, Quandell Johnson, and Rodney Owens. It really is for this program the next man up. We see it so many years coming into the season where it's the next man up. When Anthony Miller left, it was Calvin Austin that stepped up. It was Sean Dykes that stepped up. It's always the next man up for this program. And I'm a big believer in Ryan Silverfield. I like Ryan Silverfield. A lot of people around the 901 are not big Ryan Silverfield fans, but I really think that this is the year that the Tigers get this done. And I think that, 7-8 wins is very possible, especially considering their strength of schedule this season.
You think about Ryan Silverfield, offensive line coach. There have been a number of offensive line coaches signed as the head coaches and hired. I mean, you think about Sam Pittman at Arkansas. He's an outstanding recruiter, but they really relate well to the kids. And they also know that if you don't build the program on the offensive and defensive line first and then build out from there, you're not going to be really competitive. Talk about what you're seeing in terms of development by Silverfield on the offensive line specifically. Are they going to be any good?
3 guys in particular really stand out to me. Jonah Gamble, Jacob Likes, and Matt Dale. I think when you look at their projections from their freshman, sophomore years to now, I think the Tiger fans are going to be very excited. Another guy to really watch out for is Devontae Dobbs. I've heard a lot of great things from the coaching staff. Coach Glidden there at the University of Memphis was talking to me, texting me going, hey, watch out for this guy. This guy's going to be on some lists at the postseason. He's going to be really making some noise. Ryan Silverfield, he gets a bad rep because he's not, quote unquote, the head coaching material, whatever. But his development of a lot of guys, when you go back through the history of Memphis football since he's been at the program, he's developed top-level NFL offensive line talent. And he's been on coaching staffs that has also produced Dale Henderson, Tony Pollard, Brady White, who Brady White, by the way, is coming back as an offensive analyst or an offensive coordinator, co-position coordinator there for University of Memphis. So a lot of great things happening for the Tigers. I wish Memphis fans would kind of get off of Ryan Silverfield back, let him coach his team, let him go out there and really produce what a lot of Memphis fans are expecting. Because the thing about it is, I love Ryan Silverfield. Ryan Silverfield's a great guy. And I think given the right amount of time, the ample amount of time, I think he's going to really build a great program here at the University of Memphis.
All right. Talk about the SEC looking ahead. You mentioned Ole Miss and Mississippi State. That state is the center of the universe when it comes to college baseball. I think Ole Miss will be a minimum 8 wins this year. Mississippi State, last year got to the bowl game, just didn't show up. I mean, but that seems to be an illness that hits SEC schools. They don't care if they're not in one of the big 6 games or the playoff. That's got to change. But I want to ask you about your Kentucky Wildcats. 2 10-win seasons in the last 4 years. Will Levis is back. He's all over the place. Some people have him the middle of the pack, 6th or 7th in the SEC. Where do you rank Will Levis as a quarterback, taking off your Kentucky blinders? But I think you're very objective. But he's a guy, he's a very competitive quarterback. He's very smart, and the guys on the team will fight like hell for him. That's my take. How about yours?
Yeah, so Rob, I think you're spot on about that. And you mentioned the bowl games. You talked about Mississippi State a little bit. The thing about it is, once you get to these bowl games, you're already beat. You're beat to hell. I mean, you get to these bowl games and you've already faced Alabama. You face, it's hard to get up for a Texas Tech if you're Mississippi State. But as far as Will Levis goes, I think he's probably the middle of the pack as of right now. Obviously, you can probably name 4 or 5 quarterbacks that are better than him. Bryce Young, obviously, who's the Heisman winner last year. Stetson Bennett, who had an incredible season last year, really developed. Kirby Smart, I've heard, has developed even more in the offseason. Hendon Hooker at the University of Tennessee is probably better. And as far as other guys, maybe Anthony Richardson, you can make a case for, and maybe that new quarterback down there at Ole Miss, Jason Darks from the University of Southern California. And also, I think a guy that I think is one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC that not a lot of people are talking about is Will Rogers at Mississippi State. When he gets hot and he gets his rhythm going, he's really hard to shut down a little bit. And I really like Will Rogers there at Mississippi State as well.
Well, yeah, and a lot of people do. Mike Leach and Lane Kiffin are both great quarterback coaches. And you look around the SEC, Dan Mullen was, but you know what Dan Mullen's problem was? He didn't like to recruit that much. And he was, I also think he's better at recruiting the middle guys, the 3 stars, because he built that program at Mississippi State for 9 years, mainly on 2 and 3 star players. He wasn't getting a lot of 5s and hardly any, and he would get some 4s, but he was better at developing them. He gets to Florida, and you've got a lot of guys that want to come play for you. That was interesting, but it's going to be fun to watch him as an SEC analyst. Mitch, I know you got limited time. When you look over there in the East, looking at Georgia, who besides Kentucky do you think Florida in first year under Billy Napier or Tennessee in year 2 under Josh Heupel, which one of those two is most likely to push Georgia?
I would say Tennessee, but the most likely to push Georgia if it's not Kentucky is going to be the South Carolina Gamecocks. I love what Shane Beamer is building there in Columbia, South Carolina. I'm a big fan of Beamer ball. When I wrote my South Carolina preview last week, I was just so excited because there's so much to talk about. That was actually one of my longer stories I wrote last week. I think it was close to 1,000 words because there's so much excitement and so much enthusiasm there in Columbia. They're recruiting well. They're playing well. They're believing in Shane Beamer. Shane Beamer is one of the most, I hate to use this word, but I'm going to use it. He's one of the sexiest coaches to play under as of right now. The dude's young. He's hip. He's in the know. You know, he's fun to play for. I love this South Carolina team. I really, really love South Carolina, especially with 14 returning starters on 7 on offense, 7 on defense. I mean, this South Carolina team, oh my God. I don't know how you can't be excited about Spencer Rattler. And I mean, you got Marshawn Lloyd in the back. I mean, this South Carolina team is incredible.
Well, here's another thing real quick. Shane Beamer was a huge part of the success that Steve Spurrier had when he was at South Carolina as a recruiter. And you're seeing it right now. South Carolina might, by the end of this week, have 4 of the top 5 kids in the state committed. Mitch, yeah. I mean, come on.
And you know what's crazy is, and we see this all across college football, you've got to recruit your home state. You've got to recruit your region. South Carolina is going into these living rooms of these young kids and saying, look, young men, you can go to Clemson, you can go play in the ACC, that's all great and dandy, but you can come be a part of something great here in Columbia, South Carolina, that we're building for the future. We might not be on that level yet, but if you come and help us play at South Carolina, we can get you to the SEC championship. We can get you to the college bowl playoffs. And I think South Carolina is the program of the future, where I think Clemson is still taking a step back. They have those several good years of winning national championships, but I don't foresee Clemson returning back to its glory anytime soon.
Well, you know one thing, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Which came first, the championships or the recruits? Shane Beamer is building on a recruiting base, a very strong base. If they get 4 of the top 5 players in the state, that's a signal to Clemson that you know, hey, we're here to fight. But look at the success that Steve Spurrier had when he was at South Carolina against Clemson. Now, Dabo's had him on top of the world. Everybody is smelling blood. That is Clemson's rivals, because they were a 10-3 team last year. But they didn't have a great offensive line. We talk a lot with Richmond Weaver, who covers Clemson for us over in Greenville, South Carolina. But, Mitch, I tell you what, I know you got to get going. Don't be afraid to write 3,000 or 4,000 word columns, okay? Don't ever think, because if it's good stuff, people like to read, man. You know, there's nothing wrong with taking a long hike, you know, up in the mountains. Nothing wrong with reading a long column, you know? And I'm telling you, if you got good stuff, which you do, keep doing it. And that's why I love having you on. Always, you know, you're always trying to get better, but people are yearning for strong journalism and great content. Just remember that, never be afraid to write more than you think. If it's good stuff, people will read it.
Rob, thank you so much for having me on, and I really appreciate the kind words. And I look forward to welcoming you on to make your debut visit on the Mitch Davis Show. You're joining the likeness of Lane Kiffin, Laura Rutledge. As Lane Kiffin says, come to the Mitch Davis Show or come to the FAU. Now you get to come to the Mitch Davis Show, and I'm excited to welcome you on, talk about Auburn, talk about SEC football, and really just go on and on forever on the podcast.
Hey, we're going to have a lot of fun. Mitch, and again, tell people how they can follow you, and we'll let you get to work.
Yeah, themitchdavisShow.com for all the articles, and then on YouTube at The Mitch Davis Show for all the podcasts. We're going to be doing one, I think, this week, waiting on confirmation, but doing one this week with Coach Hall from Southern Miss. And then next week, August 10th, is the big day. Coach Vince Dooley will be joining the Mitch Davis Show to talk about basically everything. I'm very excited. I get 20 to 30 minutes with him to sit down with him and talk about his time at Georgia, his time coaching Herschel Walker. It should be a lot of fun. I look forward to bringing you guys that story of Vince Dooley, of the legendary head coach Vince Dooley.
I'm looking forward to it. Native of Mobile, Alabama, Murphy High School. Man, what a story that will be. But it'll be a great one. Mitch, have a great one. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Rob.
You bet. I tell you what, man, Mitch, young guy, 24, maybe 25, gets out there, goes to the games. I know Gordon Ford introduced Mitch to us back in the fall of 2019, about 3 years ago when we first started the show. Love the enthusiasm that he brings, and he's just relentless at digging, man. He's like the honey badger of journalism. I mean, he will find a guy, that he wants, or someone like Laura Rutledge, Vince Dooley, Steve Spurrier, and he will just do whatever he's got to do to get someone like that on his show. And I think that's really cool because a lot of people think people are unreachable, and that's not the case. I'm looking forward to having a legend in broadcasting on with us in late September, and it's going to happen. I'm going to tell you something. Personally, I set my mind to something, I'll get it, and you will too. But you know what? Jimmy Hodge is on here with us right now. Jimmy had a little bit of an issue there with I think Sprint versus AT&T. I don't know, but unable to merge, and we'll be going to the Supreme Court. I'm going to have to find out what in the wide world of sports happened. But Jimmy, over the weekend, everybody is anticipating the start of fall practice. That was a fun show on the Saturday Roundtable Sidelines, with Stat Tiger, Kevin Skarbinski, Frank Duffy, Buddy Martin, lots of stuff. When Buddy comes on there, it's like the coach coming out there like, all right, everybody, huddle up. Let's go. Here we go. Let's go. Let's talk about it. But Jimmy, got a couple of minutes before we go to the break, and Yancey Porter is going to join us. But, you heard over the weekend lots of stuff about college football, all kinds of news from every corner. What was the takeaway from your perspective?
Well, I think the predominating thought is that today pretty much everybody's in preseason camp, and we're getting to football. It's almost here, and a lot of fans don't realize that actually 2 weeks from Saturday, what's going to be August 27th, the season's going to start for a bunch of teams. Vandy plays their opener at Hawaii. And even though it's a team they're supposed to beat, I think a lot of people want to see what kind of progress Vandy has made, because last year they basically started from scratch, looked really bad at the beginning of the season, but they had improved significantly by the end of the year, and they actually had South Carolina beat in Columbia last year, and gave up a game-winning drive in the final seconds. And then you've got a huge game in the Big Ten, and you would never think this, but Nebraska and Northwestern meet in the opener on August 27th. And this is year 5 for Scott Frost, and a lot of people didn't think he was going to make it to this season, but they decided to give him another year. So this is a huge game for him, and Pat Fitzgerald's done a great job, of course, at Northwestern, great player there. And they had a disappointing year last year, so they want to reverse that. So that's going to be a really interesting game. and then a couple of young up and coming programs. Charlotte and Florida Atlantic are going to match up, which I think is going to be an interesting game. So for you college football junkies out there, you don't have to wait until September 3rd. August 27th, you're going to have plenty of games to check on if you would like to get an early start on seeing a bunch of, or watching a bunch of really interesting storylines get started.
Yeah. Now, Jimmy, I love what you just said. That gets me fired up because I love how you and I and Mitch was talking about the Sun Belt and Deep South college football. All these games matter. I mean, again, if you love college football, support it all. Watch it. It's great. And I'll tell you something else. On a selfish side, all the coaches that are going to be hired at the Power 5 level, they start somewhere. The problem we have a lot today is people have no idea because they don't watch all these other games enough. They don't know who the Jamie Chadwells are. They don't know who the up-and-coming coaches are. But they got to start somewhere, and they start August 27th. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We're broadcasting live from Red River Ford Toyota in Wynne, Arkansas. They open 9 a.m., 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Check them out, redriverfordtoyota.com. They will deliver anywhere. We'll be right back.
Kitchens and bathrooms make a home, and the design teams at Kitchens Unlimited know how to make kitchens and baths. They know it all because they have seen it all. Kitchens Unlimited has been designing and remodeling the Mid-South's kitchens and baths for over 50 years. Check out their showroom at 3550 Summer Avenue or visit them on the web at kitchensunlimited.net.
If you have a crash, dent or ding, go to G.E. Patterson and BB for Tom Martin's Body Shop.
Come on down to Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, located on Historical Square in Collierville, Tennessee. Hewlett & Dunn is the second largest Filson dealer in the Southeast, stocked with Southern brands you know and trust. And a new inventory arriving all the time. Do yourself or someone you know and love a favor and visit this store. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
As an agricultural producer, no matter where you farm, minimum tillage is a primary concern each and every season. At House Industries in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, we manufacture equipment to help you maximize efficiency when planting and watering a crop. Pieces like the pulverizer, bedder roller, 3-bar do-all, and bed conditioner assist you in optimizing seedbed preparation and ultimately your bottom line. Visit HouseIndustriesInc.com to locate the dealer nearest you.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown back with you here next segment. Yancey Porter will be checking in a moment from Oxford, Mississippi. Covers Ole Miss for us. Lots of other schools in the Southeastern Conference in addition to Ole Miss. He knows them all very well. Been doing it a long time. You can always hear him Monday nights live on the Rebel Yell Hotline, 6 p.m. Central. I know in Memphis on Sports 56 WHBQ and all over the great state of Mississippi on Super Talk. Super Talk it's big, folks. It's really big. Jimmy, again, the best thing about starting college football practice is we're going to get to talk, and we are talking about the games, the players, the depth charts and all. And NIL and the portal, that's the best thing is it gets pushed to the back pages or not talked about at all, because I really think we all are just so concerned about saving college football. We love it the way it is. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with feeling that way. There's nothing wrong with saying, I don't want college sports to be like pro sports. I want them to be separate. You know, it's like you see babies out in public in restaurants, little girls with like, what do they put little bands around their heads and piercing their ears? I mean, that's disgusting. You know, let them be a kid. They're going to drool all over themselves and, you know, spill food everywhere and come home dirty. It's like those laundry detergent commercials, Jimmy, about the woman always complaining about her kids getting dirty. Okay, wait a minute. They go outside, they're going to play, they're going to get dirty. You play college football, you're going to get banged up. It's a physical, it's a violent game, but if you want to do it and with safety and all, have a good, experience. We're all about that. Okay. And no doubt about it. But I think, and I'm going to predict as this college football season, I'm a stat tiger. He talked about it Saturday. The offensive numbers this year are going to be some of the best we've ever seen in the history of the game. But Jimmy, in the past, you might have a school that gave up 8 to 12 points a game, and that's a national champion. But now you've got schools that are giving up 21 to 27 points a game, and they're making the college playoff. That's because the offenses are able to make up ground so quickly. And when LSU won the national championship in 2019, the thing I remember most, I think they gave up, it was among the most points given up in a single season by any LSU team. And that's arguably, along with the 95 Nebraska team, I always give them credit. Those are the two best college football teams in the history of the game. But Jimmy, as great as these offenses are supposed to be this year, we all talk about it. It started at Delta State and Southeast Louisiana. Ron Roberts and the creeper defense. He teamed up with Dave Aranda at Baylor last year. And I know that, Levy was going to Oklahoma to be their offensive coordinator with Brent Venables. But, man, did Baylor shut down. And I know Matt Corral got injured. I understand all that. But Ole Miss did not have an answer for what Baylor was doing. Question is, two of them, Jimmy. Why isn't Ron Roberts a head coach at a Power 5 school if some of these other guys that get jobs are? Maybe he doesn't want to be. And number two, how much better can you make that defense than what they did? Because Lane Kiffin's offense is one of the toughest and the best in America.
Well, before I get to that, I want to say that I think it's hard to leave Alabama's 2020 offense out of that conversation for one of the best offenses in college football history, because they did it against 10 SEC opponents, plus an SEC championship game, plus a playoff run. And so they did not play any non-Power 5 opponents, and all 10 regular season games were against the SEC. So I think that's as impressive an offensive showing as you'll ever see from a unit in college football. But as far as Ron Roberts goes, I think he's really happy with where he's at, being a defensive coordinator at a Power 5 school that's defending Big 12 champions. And what isn't known about Ron Roberts, a lot of college football fans, is that he also taught Pete Golding how to coach. He played for him. Golding did at Southeastern Louisiana. Was a 4-year starter at safety, and Golding isn't a big guy. You wouldn't think he had that much success as a player, but he certainly did. And Ron Roberts was also his mentor. And he put together just a great scheme, because Ole Miss was riding high from being able to earn their first, Sugar Bowl berth since the Archie Manning days. And I think they were just maybe caught celebrating the success of a historic season. And when you have 3 weeks between, or 4 weeks almost, between games, your last regular season game, the win over State, and then that gap before you play the bowl game, I think they, and maybe their fans, just took this game as a foregone conclusion that they were going to win it.
Well, Yancey's on the line with us right now, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I know he's got a limited time. But let's expand on that and kind of the takeaway from what happened, because that's great explanation, Jimmy. I hate to to cut you off in there, but I want Yancey to pick up on that.
Pick up on what? I didn't hear
what we're talking about. Jimmy's talking, and I brought it up about Ron Roberts, the creeper defense, teaming up with Dave Aranda at Baylor, and how that helped them so much to stifle Ole Miss's offense in the Sugar Bowl. Ole Miss had a lot going on, but what do you think the takeaway is from that Lane Kiffin? Because he does not. He's a very, very smart coach. He learned a lot about how to attack. He's probably been studying how to attack it, because other people will try to run that defense, and they will, but it's not that easy, is it?
Well, first I'll start off with this. Baylor's defense that Ole Miss played last season, the Sugar Bowl, was the best defense that Ole Miss played. And so that means that Baylor had the best defense out of anybody in the SEC, because Ole Miss played Alabama, Auburn, and on down the line. Well, I take that back. Excuse me. They didn't play Georgia, and Georgia had the best defense in the country. So they would have had the second best defense in the country behind Georgia. Obviously, Georgia's defense is much more talented than Baylor's. But where it all started from is the average age of their defensive line last year was 24 years old.
That sounds like BYU.
So when you have four guys that are 6- and 7-year seniors, it really helps a defense out, right?
Yeah.
And then they had stars on every level. They had a star on the defensive line, they had a star at linebacker, and they had a star at the defensive back. As far as attacking that defense, if you lose your two offensive tackles in the first series and your Heisman Trophy quarterback, it's really hard to play offense, right?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of things going on within that game. I'm sure Kiffin will be able to, if people want to copycat, which other good programs always do when something is successful, I'm sure he has thought of many ways during the offseason. But, when you lose your two offensive tackles and your starting quarterback right there in the first 5 minutes of the first quarter, it makes things very difficult. But, I'm not going to say that's the only reason Baylor's defense looked good, because I watched them a little bit all year, and then seeing them up close last year and watching them, they really were. If they were in the SEC, they would have had the second best defense in the SEC, and that's saying a mouthful.
Yeah, because Georgia had one for the ages, 5 taken in the first round. Yancey, another thing, practice starts this week down in Oxford, Ole Miss.
Yep.
Lane Kiffin, I said it when they hired him. I said he'll win a lot of games there, and the detractors, the 1 year he was at Tennessee, they won't let go of it. I mean, it's like, you made a mistake one time you went to the wrong restaurant, and if you're married, your wife will remind you of it until they put you in the ground in a pine box. Okay, get over yourself, stifle yourself, Edith, as Archie would say. I want you to talk about the expectations as you see it down there in Oxford. You're out and about on the square. You're over there at the Beacon. You know what people are saying. I think the floor for Ole Miss this year is 8 games. The defensive line is getting better, and depending on if it's Jackson Dart or if it's Luke Altmaier from Starkville, whatever, there's no limit to what Ole Miss can do. And again, Lane Kiffin learns from his mistakes.
Well, I think your opinion there of 8-4 is pretty much about everybody else's opinion. 8-4. Are they as talented as Alabama and maybe even Georgia? Even if Georgia still also that talent, they've been recruiting top 3 in the country every single year.
Yeah.
I've always contended that you have to have an average of 90 on your recruiting rankings for 4 classes stacked to be a true contender for a national champion. Now, the portal has changed that somewhat, because you can kind of chase the portal a little bit and offset the deficiencies in high school recruitings. But I don't think Ole Miss's recruiting has been high enough up there with Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, mainly those 3 over these last couple of years to be a true national contender. But I do think that they can go 10-2 again, and upset someone like an Alabama. But are they a national championship contender? I don't think they're there yet. Are they someone that could scare an Alabama and win 10 games? 100%, yes.
Yeah. What I meant by the 8 deal, that's the floor. That's the least number.
The floor.
Yeah.
The least
I didn't want
amount.
because you know me, Nancy. You say how many games is Auburn going to win? I'm like, let me know the ones they're not going to win. I mean, I expect to win them all, but I'm just saying that's where he has the program already, and I just think this is what year 3 for Lane Kiffin. Okay, and your floor is 8 wins, and Jimmy, jump in here. I just think people get off his ass. I mean, look, coaches come and go. They do. That guy can flat out coach most coaches in America. And I tell you what, they went for it 49 times last year on 4th down. That's an all-time record. Somebody brought that up with Lane Kiffin at media days. And, I don't know Lane Kiffin, but he'd be fun to talk to. He goes, I didn't know that. That's interesting. He goes, wow, he that's how dialed in that guy is, man.
Well, let me say something about that. I don't know if anybody remembers back in the Tuberville days at Ole Miss when they called him the Riverboat Gambler.
Yes, sir.
Led the SEC, the country in 4th down attempts. Each year he was at Ole Miss, but there was a reason why for that, right? Because
he had to
lose. It's different. It's different when you are the opponent, right?
Yeah.
So, when Lane gets the program where he's favored against Alabama's of the world, and we'll see how many 4th downs he goes for. Will he still do for it? Of course he will. That's Lane. He always will. Is he going to go for it, 6-7 times a game? I doubt it. Will he do that this year? Yes, he's going to have to, because Ole Miss still has a talent deficiency compared to the Alabamas of the world. So you have to go for it.
Yeah. Okay. Jimmy?
Well, when you look at Ole Miss overall, just look at their schedule. I mean, the way it's set up gives them a great chance to really come out of the gate strong. And we have talked about it some earlier, but you look at Troy, and Troy has a history of giving SEC teams some problems because they can put points on the board, but I think Ole Miss will be fine there. Then you got Central Arkansas coming in. Then you've got a very, very winnable road game at Georgia Tech. We know the Jackets have been struggling for a couple of years. You got to think Ole Miss is going to take care of business there. Then they get Tulsa. So you should be 4-0 with Kentucky coming into Oxford. This is a Kentucky program that's playing with a lot of confidence right now. Huge game for Ole Miss. If Ole Miss is able to win at home, then, you're looking at 5-0, and then you go to Vandy. Very winnable game there. You could be 6-0 very conceivably with Auburn coming into Oxford. So I tell you, that 8 games, I mean, if Ole Miss just progresses like a lot of people think they should, they're in line to, really have a strong year. But you got to keep in mind that Western Division is just so equal within the number 2 through number 7 teams in so many ways, because there's just a lot of good players in all of those teams. Go down the line. You look at Mississippi State's a passing game, which can always give teams problems. And last year, I think the monsoon really had a lot to do with State's problems throwing the football. I think they dropped what would have been 3 consecutive touchdown passes on back-to-back plays, because they couldn't deal with the weather conditions. But when you look at the West, though, nobody remembers last year that State won at A&M the week before Bama came into College Station and lost on that very same field. They won at Jordan-Hare. Yancey, how many teams go to College Station and Jordan-Hare and win road games in the same year.
I tell you what, it's crazy. I mean, and that's why we still love the game of football.
Yeah.
Alabama's kind of spoiled it somewhat. I think it's been bad for the game to have someone to be as dominant as they are, but you can still have fun with the game, just as you just spoke. I mean, Mississippi State goes to A&M and Auburn and wins. I mean, that's just unthinkable.
Well,
has anybody ever scored 40 points in a row on Auburn at Jordan-Hare? It's crazy.
I know Ole Miss happened.
Yeah, the only one.
We've talked about this over and over, but the key game for Ole Miss is not Alabama, it's not Mississippi State, it's Auburn.
Yeah,
it's Auburn. It's not even close. Auburn could be 0-10 with the worst team in school history, and they would still give Ole Miss fit. It's just the way that series has been. It doesn't matter what coach it is, what year it is. And Ole Miss sees that Auburn helmet, it brings out the worst in Ole Miss, period. So that is the circle, double circle, triple circle game of the year for Ole Miss is Auburn.
Let me throw one
at
you.
Yancey, I got to jump in real quick. I think Kentucky's really huge because if they get that win there, then you got Vandy on the road. If you're 6-0 with Auburn coming in, I mean, you've got a avalanche full of confidence, behind you there. And I think they would be playing that game with just every psychological advantage you can imagine. The crowd's going to be fired up. You're going to have a national TV audience. It's going to have everything that you need for a big time game. And, Lane Kiffin is going to take total advantage of that environment to get his team ready to play.
Yancey, let me throw one at you.
I agree, Jimmy. I agree that Kentucky is the first, and you need to win Kentucky to make that Auburn game important. But again, nobody brings out the worst in Ole Miss like Auburn.
Well, let me.
You look at that 2 years ago. The team when Auburn won 2 years ago at Oxford, the one where the controversial touchdown that hit the Auburn player in the leg. That they said that did not, and they reviewed it for about 25 minutes. I mean, that was one of the worst Auburn teams I've ever seen, period. And they won at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Auburn brings out the worst in Ole Miss.
Well, let me say this, guys. Woe the fan of any school that ever says that the weather was a problem, because it rained on Ole Miss that night too. And
yeah, I know it did. But
I gotta say that
we know their offense.
I know, but
on the pass.
But I know, but I gotta say that. But let me say,
and even Charlie Trotman said himself.
I know, but
not a guy that's going to make any kind of excuses.
Yeah.
But that was a huge factor in the ball game, and it's just because of the way their offense is set up. They are not a team that is going to line up and pound you for 5 yards of carry. So we all know that.
Yeah.
You know?
Let me.
But you know.
Yeah. No. You're right. I mean, but it can affect you. But you gotta, as a coach, you do not want your players starting going, "Oh God, it's raining. We're doomed." I mean, you don't want that. That's all I say.
No.
Now, but
no, that's for us to do.
Yeah,
not the players.
Yeah, exactly. That's for us to do at the Beacon or Red River Ford Toyota or whatever.
Yeah, the players aren't thinking about that. They're just
brother,
going out there trying to execute.
Yeah,
as Rob is saying, you got to have a team that travels. It can't be sunshine and 80 degrees.
Yeah,
for your team to play well.
Yeah, and the point is,
wind and snow and rain should be no factor. You have to have a team that travels.
Hey, all you got to do.
But that's the point, though, is that State doesn't have that type of offense that can travel. So that's one of their big missions. I mean, they've got to find a way to be able to play power football when you need to, but since they're not there at this point in time, then it makes life tough for them.
All right, let me say this: if I'm Mike Leach, I go and load up the Brinks truck and back it in to the home of one of the United States Postal Service's most recognizable employees. He with his white shocks and his birth control shoes. Cliff Clavin of the post office. And remind you that rain, snow, sleet or shine, You got to show up. But let me say this. Here's another little bit of interesting trivia that only an idiot savant like myself would know, but it matters. I'm going to share this with you. They didn't start playing Ole Miss, Auburn didn't, in Oxford until 1984. Okay? They've only lost 3 times against Ole Miss when they played in Oxford. But in 1992, that was the last time that Pat Dye would coach Auburn football. He was resigned at the end of that season, but they lost badly in Oxford. In 2008, Tommy Tuberville lost against Ole Miss like 17-10 in Oxford. That was the last time he would be the football coach at Auburn. He was gone at the end of the season. In 2012, Gene Chizik, 2 years removed from winning the national championship, 62 years, you had to go back to 1950 when Auburn was 0-10 and lost to Wofford. That's what opened the door to hiring Ralph Shug Jordan as the football coach. He'd be there 25 years, win a national championship. Stadium's named after him and Clifford Leroy Hare. But bottom line, if you are the Auburn football coach, you cannot lose to Ole Miss in Oxford and expect to come back. I'm just saying, historically, you're batting 0-3 on that one. And it's a weird series, Yancey. It is. It's that Auburn, Auburn will bring a ton of fans up there. Ole Miss will have a ton. Obviously, it's their home stadium, but that's going to be an interesting. And I'm with Jimmy, man. You're 6-0 going into that game. Holy cow, man. And then you're
Rob,
yeah.
let me cut you off there.
Yeah.
Auburn will not bring a ton of fans to Ole Miss. Nobody brings fans anywhere anymore.
Well,
those days are over. There'll be 3,500 to 5,000 if that's a great crowd. It just we don't see that anymore. I mean, even when LSU, Ole Miss's biggest rival, plays at Ole Miss or State, there's lucky to be 3,500 people in the stadium now. It's those days are gone.
Well,
except at Vandy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I think everybody loves Nashville. So.
I think it's the reverse, Yancey. When Vandy plays at home.
Yeah. Well, what happened? What's happening?
They only have to pay $25 for a ticket in the city of Nashville.
Well,
so
here's
a lot of good restaurants, but it's just fans don't travel anymore. They're begging them just to come to their home games, much less asking fans to pay $2,000 to $5,000 for a game. They just don't do it anymore.
The problem with Vanderbilt is Nashville's getting big, like Atlanta, and you've got so many transients moving there. And I was talking to some folks that live in Franklin. They said, man, there's so many Californians moving there, and they're bringing their California ways with them, and everybody's selling their property to them. And pretty soon you're not going to recognize it. I'm telling you, Vanderbilt. Yeah. I mean, I remember back in the 80s, you go to Atlanta, Auburn, Georgia Tech game, Auburn would have over half the crowd. Now that's Auburn's biggest, outside the state in America. Atlanta has over 20,000 Auburn alumni. That doesn't include all the fans. People like my man, the scalper extraordinaire, Snake. I can get tickets to anything from my man Snake, and he even has an official ID badge because scalping in the state of Alabama, by the way, gentlemen, is totally legal, I might add. But Yancey, look, I know you got a meeting you got to go to, and this has been fun. Yancey, you're always fun, but I'm just saying, I hope the fans will travel, and that's all.
I do too. I do too.
We got to get that back.
To get back that way. College football is missing that element.
Yeah.
Not having the visiting fans. Now, for opening game of the year at a site like Atlanta, sure, fans are going to come. And when Oklahoma and Texas join the SEC, they're going to flood that first year or two on the away games. But just the every year fans coming to the games, visiting fans, that trend has gone down and down and down. I remember, they used to give 7,500, 10,000 visiting tickets. And there would be a waiting line to get those tickets. And now that's gone down to 5,000. I talked to somebody in the ticket office at Ole Miss just a few weeks about it, and they're giving 3,500 away tickets to fans now that used to take 7,500 tickets. So, it's a shame.
Yeah,
it really
is. And Yancey, I'm going to tell you something. You go to Ole Miss, you go to Starkville. I mean, people in Mississippi are so damn hospitable and nice. I mean, I absolutely love it. And, one day Archie Manning is going to be watching from heaven and he'll be gone. But Eli's here and Peyton's here, his grandson Arch or whatever. But that's your face of Mississippi, guy from the Delta. Just, the Ole Miss people are not going to see who Ole Miss is playing. They're going to see Ole Miss play and to renew acquaintances and friendships that they have. But I'm with you, man. We got to get the fans making those road trips. That's what makes a conference so special. Yancey, and it's always a special time to have you on. I know you got to go to a meeting, but tell people how they can listen to your show tonight and look forward to talking to you later in the week. It's always fun when you're on, and this has been some of the best banter. I love it, and tomfoolery of all time.
Well, if you live in the state of Mississippi or Tennessee, all you got to do is go to your local Super Talk or WHCT station. And if you're not in one of those two states, you can listen live on NorthMSSuperTalk.com. Very simple.
NorthMSSuperTalk.com, correct?
There we go. That's it.
You damn right. All right, we're going to do.
We got a great show. We got a great show tonight. We're going to be discussing the start of spring. 2 days, no more spring practice. And also, Ole Miss's huge recruiting weekend. We saw them commit 5 players that jumped them from 62 to 31 in the national rankings, and now they stand at 15 on the per player ranking at 90. That's that 90 number that I said it takes. You got to have an average player ranking of 90 back to back classes to really be a national contender. And this is the first class since 2016 they've hit that 90 threshold. So things are really going well for Ole Miss in the recruiting front.
I totally agree with you. I've always thought it was 90 or 91, and that is great stuff. Yancey, have a blessed day. It's always great having you on. Thanks.
You too. God bless, guys. Take
All
care.
right, thank you. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with a great Irishman, folks. You ready for this name? Conor O'Gara. I'm not sure if he's from County Cork, County Limerick. I'm not sure where, or Galway Bay, but he's going to be with us from Saturdays Down South, talking some college football in hour number 2. Be right back.
Kitchens and bathrooms make a home, and the design teams at Kitchens Unlimited know how to make kitchens and baths. They know it all because they have seen it all. Kitchens Unlimited has been designing and remodeling the Mid-South's kitchens and baths for over 50 years. Check out their showroom at 3550 Summer Avenue or visit them on the web at kitchensunlimited.net.
If you have a crash, dent or ding, go to G.E. Patterson and BB for Tom Martin's Body Shop.
Come on down to Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, located on Historical Square in Collierville, Tennessee. Hewlett & Dunn is the second largest Filson dealer in the Southeast, stocked with Southern brands you know and trust. And a new inventory arriving all the time. Do yourself or someone you know and love a favor and visit this store. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
As an agricultural producer, no matter where you farm, minimum tillage is a primary concern each and every season. At House Industries in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, we manufacture equipment to help you maximize efficiency when planting and watering a crop. Pieces like the pulverizer, bedder roller, 3-bar do-all, and bed conditioner assist you in optimizing seedbed preparation and ultimately your bottom line. Visit HouseIndustriesInc.com to locate the dealer nearest you.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown back here with you. Hour number 2 on this Monday morning, August 1st, 2022. It's the start of college football practices. I know players all over the South are waking up and getting going, and I got a great guy. I'm literally looking forward to having Conor O'Gara Saturday Down South. Met him down at SEC Media Days. In case you're wondering, folks, Captain Obvious just sent me a text. Connor, that's an Irish name, and it's a beautiful name. And being my last name is Brown with an E, we're one of the 14 tribes of Galway. I don't know if you're from County Cork or Shannon or, County Mayo or whatever, but man, football. I watched you in action out there on the floor at media days, but I'm going to tell you something else. You're the kind of guest we have on this show: history, tradition, and heroes. You wrote an article. The theme was basically, we're hearing everything that's wrong about college football. I'm going to tell you what's right about college football. You wrote a piece about DK Joyner, South Carolina, nearly quit college football, but he didn't. Instead became everything that's right about the game. And let me tell you what, true grit journalism, people that find the good stuff. I'm not saying we don't talk about, quote, the bad stuff, but we need more people like you. Then again, you're Irish and you're a winner. It ain't luck, it's hard work. Welcome to Sidelines.
Man, I don't know how I follow up that intro. I don't think I've ever been introed with a shout out to Galway. My ancestors hail from the northern part of Ireland, but I've been to Galway. I've experienced Cliffs of Moher. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's a sacred place. It really is. Look, I try and tell it like it is, and I think there are a lot of great stories out there with NIL that aren't necessarily being told. And I think that was one of the things that I kept coming back to with Carrie and Joyner. And he's somebody that I've written about a few times before, but I think it's different now when we look at the context of what his last year has been with Shane Beamer, and a guy who, was a 4-star quarterback recruit. And a lot of these guys in this day and age, they either want to play quarterback and they stick with it and they'll transfer to a smaller school, which I totally understand, or they'll end up just kind of flaming out and their career kind of is what it is if they don't get that chance to start right away. And here you have a kid who was willing to take on this back and forth role, was willing to take on different roles in different offenses with different coordinators telling them to do whatever. And he says, my loyalty is to South Carolina. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter who I was recruited by. And the fact that every school wanted me, I was recruited by South Carolina. This is my home. And what he's been able to do with NIL is pretty incredible as well, with having his own camps, being able to have youth camps in his hometown of Fort Dorchester, and being able to kind of get this support in the North Charleston area. So it's been incredible to see the way that he has bought into Shane Beamer, the Duke's Mayo Bowl MVP performance that he had, where going in, he's like, I didn't have any confidence in playing quarterback anymore. And all he does is go out there and deliver the performance that he's been waiting his entire career for. So I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do in year 5. And I think that's just a great storyline to keep in mind for those who think NIL is all bad news.
Yeah, and it certainly can create opportunities. And the kids that can prioritize, they're there to get an education, play football, and that NIL, it's all going to work out. It's always darkest before dawn. I tell people that 31 years in the financial securities industry, people, what are you going to do? The market was down 1,000 points. I'm like, well, I'm talking to my clients. I'm not worrying about what happened just now because, kind of like NIL, transfer portal. These are stories that come along. We had Tony Barnhart on last week, Connor, and Mr. College Football. We talked about 1906. I think 19 players died playing college football. And one Georgia player died. The governor of Georgia and the state legislature, it was too violent. We're going to have to get rid of football. And that player's mother appeared before the state legislature at the Capitol in Atlanta and said, he wouldn't want it that way. He loved football. It's my son. He died. It's terrible, but we got to push forward. Let's just do it better. And that's kind of how the NCAA was started. But Connor, was it just me, or was the takeaway from media days that all 14 schools brought 3 student athletes? I was really impressed with them. Obviously, you want to put your best foot forward, but again, the DK Joyner story, that's what we need to be hearing about. I mean, guys that hang in there and they fight and they scratch and they claw. They do not give up. They represent the very best of America. I've got kids DK's age. They always tell me it's not the kids today that are the problem. It's the parents. They want to be their kids' friends. Then you got a guy like Shane Beamer. I mean, Virginia Tech, think about Beamer ball, Frank Beamer. He grew up with that. And I mean, people are talking about coaches that do this or that or whatever, but hey man, anybody that puts a jar of Duke's Mayo on his head to celebrate, he's I bet he'd be a lot of fun to play for. So just say that. But Connor, what was your takeaway outside of all 14 schools? You were there for everything. What was the general theme once Commissioner Sankey gave his State of the Conference address and fired a shot over the bow to all of college football that we are the badasses in the college game, and we'll do what we want to do when we want to do it?
Yeah, if you're looking just in terms of actual football stuff and not necessarily anything related to conference realignments, which I think there's nothing necessarily imminent with that, especially with the SEC and the way that this is developed now with having Texas and Oklahoma joining and the fact that the grant of rights deal is still in place, locking the ACC schools into that current contract through 2036. Unless something changes with that, I wouldn't necessarily expect anything imminent from the SEC. But what I thought was the most interesting football takeaway is how good so many programs in the SEC feel about their quarterback situations. Quarterback play in the SEC is as good as it has been since at least 2013, and maybe even longer. This might be the golden age of SEC quarterbacks. Here's what I mean by that. You have 7 to 8 fan bases in the SEC who have a legitimate argument to make for why their quarterback could be one of the 10 best in college football this year. Maybe they aren't necessarily going into the year, but maybe by season's end, they have that case. And I think that you're seeing all these quarterback rankings come out, and everybody's upset with them because everybody feels like their guy is getting disrespected. Oh, how could you not have KJ Jefferson in your top 5? How could you only have Hendon Hooker at number 5? Where's Will Levis? Why is he behind Spencer Radley? All of this depth is just a sign that, to me, there are so many teams in the SEC that have figured out their offensive systems. Talk about Georgia. You talk about Tennessee. Talk about Kentucky. These programs that, quite frankly, were late to change their offenses and were dated as recently as 2019 and have since changed their offenses to be able to have a more modern approach, to be able to light up scoreboards in a hurry. And those offenses now have quarterbacks that feel like they can thrive. And to me, that's the big takeaway that I had, was seeing a lot of these quarterbacks there representing their teams, whether it was Hendon Hooker, KJ Jefferson, Will Levis, all these different guys. Even Mike Wright, I thought was really impressive from Vandy, and the way that he kind of conducted himself after being publicly named the starter at SEC Media Days by Clark Lee, which is pretty amazing. I think that seeing all these guys makes you feel like, wow, these SEC programs feel like they have a chance because they have the quarterback situation figured out, which has not always been the case in recent memory.
Well, you're right. And I think it was when Philip Marshall asked Jimbo Fisher on Thursday at SEC Media Days about 12 of the 14 quarterbacks are returning starters. That's what's really unique. And then just about the number of, hey, you've got LSU starting quarterback that beats you on a game-winning drive, and Auburn's got your quarterback. South Carolina's got Oklahoma's quarterback. Caleb Thompson's out there at Southern Cal now. He left Oklahoma. Jaden Daniels is from Arizona State to LSU. It's a crazy world, but you know what? Prior to the portal, October 15th of 2018 becoming the law of the land, prior to that, on average, historically, 42% of the quarterbacks that signed a Division I college football scholarship ended up at a different school when their eligibility ran out. So been going on a long time. There's just a lot more exposure to it. So it's interesting. But Jimmy Hodge, I know you've got questions for Connor O'Gara. And Connor, my mom's side of the family is from County Donegal up there in the coast of Northwest Ireland. So tough country. But I'll tell you one thing. First time I had a couple of Guinness stouts over there at a pub in Roundstone in Clifton, Ireland. Holy cow. This ain't your grandfather's Bud Light. I can tell you that.
Guinness, it's different. It's 100% true. My happy place is going to that top floor of the Guinness factory and being able to look out. And you can see so much because you can't have skyscrapers in Dublin or anything like that. The Guinness definitely hits a little bit different in Ireland, that's for sure.
I remember walking back from a pub. I had on an Auburn sweatshirt, ran into some people, and they said, "Oh, my friend, where are you from?" I said, "I'm from Memphis, but I go to school at Auburn down in Alabama." He goes, "Oh, Alabama, the South." And they told us a story about taking a trip over there, and they had a flat tire, and they said, "We must have had half a dozen cars stop by, and every one of them had relatives from Ireland, and we were there for 2 hours to change the simple tire. And then we drank beer and had a good time, and they're coming to visit next year." I'm going, holy cow. But nothing, before we go to Jimmy, will top taking the bus ride from Clifton back into Dublin to eventually catch the plane to go back to reality. And every time that bus stopped, people got on with bicycles, occasionally a couple of sheep, and it was incredible. But the thing I'll never forget is trying to read the road signs in Gaelic. That is something I don't know Gaelic, but boy, Ireland is. They say there's 40 shades of green. I think there's 40,000. It's the most beautiful place on earth. But Jimmy Hodge jumping here with Connor O'Gara. I just love saying the name. It's great.
Yeah, Connor, I couldn't help but chuckle because I was looking at a article prior to the 2021 season by Steve Lasson of Athlon Sports, and he rated the SEC quarterbacks going into last season, and of course, behind the no-brainers of Matt Corral and Bryce Young, going 3 through 8, he had JT Daniels at 3, Emory Jones at 4, Max Johnson at 5, Connor Bazelak at 6, Bo Nix at 7, and Haynes King at 8. Well, every one of those guys except Haynes King is at another school. And if you saw Haynes King in the spring game, I would not feel good about him beating out Max Johnson. So a lot of these quarterback predictions and rankings and so forth can change very quickly. You just never know what's going to happen from season to season. And also now with the transfer portal, you have situations where, like it's been previously mentioned, you've got starting quarterbacks at certain SEC schools that were starting at a different SEC school last year. And with the transfer portal, it's just absolutely crazy. So do you see any of these transfers that really are going to make an instant impact? Because for me, I think Max Johnson could be the perfect quarterback for A&M, because Jimbo's known for coaching his quarterbacks hard. And Johnson is one of those guys that reminds me of kind of a modern day David Green or Mike Shula, that is able to maximize his strengths, minimize his weaknesses, and he really doesn't turn the ball over much. And I remember that performance he had in Gainesville 2 years ago, the week before the SEC championship game. I think it was his first start. LSU came to Gainesville with, I think, 53 scholarship players, and he was just flawless. And I think he's the type of guy with the talent level A&M has that could really propel them to a really strong season.
I'll agree to disagree on that one. I'm more of the unknown of Haynes King intrigues me a lot, and I think they both struggled a lot in the spring game, and I don't know how much that was related to the wind, as Jimbo Fisher cited afterwards. I think they were both just not very good. The questions I have about Max Johnson are related to what does it look like when he's not dialed into one specific target. That was kind of the book on him and what he did at LSU, whether that was in year one as a true freshman or year two in Jake Peetz's offense, when he would just kind of dial in Keyshawn Butte. And other than that, when that would break down, it was kind of ugly. He didn't necessarily have those turnovers, but he also didn't take that offense to the place where many thought it could go, and that was a source of frustration. I think Haynes King is going to win that starting job because I think Jimbo Fisher wants to see it through. I'm more skeptical of Jimbo Fisher as an offensive mind. I don't think he's a good troubleshooter at all. I think last year showed you in 2017 as well, when DeAndre Francois went down in the season opener. And it was really a struggle from that point forward with Florida State. We obviously knew that team had cracks in the foundation, but Jimbo Fisher hasn't had an all-conference quarterback since Jameis Winston. He hasn't had a top 30 passing offense since Jameis Winston as well. I think that gets kind of lost in the shuffle with what he's been able to do over the course of the last 8-9 years. And I think that moving forward, there are questions about what that offense is going to be with some of the weapons that they lost on the outside. And I know Anaya Smith isn't facing suspension anymore. That's good news for them. I still have questions about what it's going to look like with Evan Stewart, the true freshman receiver, where freshman receivers have really not thrived with Jimbo Fisher at all, if you kind of look at it dating back to Florida State. But the guy that I think is going to have the big impact is a transfer is Spencer Rattler. And I think the pendulum has swung too far in the opposite direction with him, because Last year when he gets benched, I think everybody's like, oh, he was terrible, blah, blah, blah. He had a quarterback rating of 158 going into that Texas game. Everybody pretends like he couldn't complete a pass when in reality, it was just the fact that he was being held up to the standard of Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and Jalen Hurts, and he had Caleb Williams as his backup. And so now in a situation in South Carolina where he does have some weapons, his offensive line is not going to be as good, but I still think that he has the ability to kind of give South Carolina something it hasn't had, which is a guy who can make pro-style throws. They haven't had a quarterback drafted since they've been a member of the SEC. They haven't had an all-conference quarterback since they've been a member of the SEC. They need Spencer Rattler to be that guy, and a team that had 4 different starting quarterbacks last year, you feel good about what stability at that position could do for them. So I think he's the guy that can make that difference for them. And I'm more of the belief that he's going to be better than some who have already dismissed his abilities just because he didn't live up to that hype coming into last year as the projected number 1 overall pick.
Well, I think he's got a tendency, in certain games to just come up short. I mean, the Iowa State game 2 years ago in Norman, he just didn't play well. When they needed him to, he wasn't able to do so. And that Texas game last year, that was the second year in a row he played poorly against Texas. And I think a lot of, and I think what I think bothered some people is that after they won the game, when Caleb Williams came in there, he did not act happy about it, and a lot of people thought he was putting himself ahead of the team's success. And
He was.
So and I just think that everybody has different opinions on everything, and obviously Beamer, being at Oklahoma, was around the program every day, and he strongly feels that he can come in and get the job done for them, just like Jimbo does with Max Johnson, because of the clutch throw he made to beat A&M last year. But the Haynes King, in the spring game, what bothered me though was just basic footwork and the just basic fundamentals of throwing the ball. It just, he was missing guys by 5-6 yards. I know the wind was blowing, but golly, I just think he's got a long way to go. He's a great runner, great athlete, but hey, that's what this preseason camp's about, and we'll just see how everything shakes out, because the players on the field obviously are going to decide, who plays and who gets the opportunities to get things done. And then you also don't know, when an injury can take place. You can have the best quarterback in college football, and if he gets injured, you've got to have a guy ready to go in that backup position. And you just never know when certain guys really step up and become significant contributors at a really important position.
Yeah, I think it's pretty lost in the shuffle that in the SEC last year, 9 of 14 teams had to start multiple quarterbacks. Well, we always think that everybody's going to start every single game and nothing's ever going to go wrong. And what this often comes down to is who is a durable quarterback, who can be there week in, week out, who can withstand a bad performance or two, and who's actually able to finish the year for you. And if you kind of look at the guys who were able to start every single game last year, you look at the way that it played out for them, those offenses were in much better shape. That's not breaking news to come out and say something like that, but we often think that it's going to be a certain way, and that just because we hear a certain camp storyline, or we overvalue spring games. I remember at this time last year, we had no idea what KJ Jefferson was going to be. Everybody's talking about his conditioning. Can he run Kendall Briles' offense? Is he too out of shape? And all he does is become, in my opinion, one of the better quarterbacks in college football last year. And in my opinion, he deserves to start off as one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the country this year. I have him at number 3 in my quarterback rankings. And at this time last year, he was admittedly unproven and unsure that he can be the guy. And then you just kind of find yourself, and you have these moments. And if you go back and watch that game last year between Arkansas and Ole Miss, where you really see KJ kind of come into his own and find that whatever that is, that to be able to kind of rise up in those moments when your team is down, 5 points, 6 points late in the game, and come back and pull out, at least give your team a chance to have a monumental victory. KJ is capable of doing that, and I think there are a lot of guys in the SEC who feel like they're capable of making that next step. Whether or not A&M has that guy remains to be seen. I have my questions about just A&M as a whole. I've been saying for a while they're going to come into the year as the most overrated team in college football, and I think that's because everybody expects them to be next after the way this recruiting class played out. but how many true freshman classes have been make or break with a team that's trying to win a division title or, get to a New Year's Six Bowl? You really do not see that no matter how good that true freshman class is. So we'll kind of wait and see how this plays out with A&M. Jimbo Fisher's not going anywhere. They're not going to pay him $86 million to walk away, which is what he would be owed at the end of this year. They'll have a championship window in 2023 and 2024. I'm just more of the belief that this team is not necessarily going to live up to some of the high expectations that some have set out for them.
Connor, when you look at it, part of the reason I think a lot of people do feel good about Spencer Rattler coming to South Carolina is because he has a relationship, and Shane Beamer was on the staff at Oklahoma. He knows him. Okay. But I'm a Jimmy. You look at a player, if he's pulled in a game, you still want him on the sidelines cheering for his teammates. But let's be honest, which we always are. I hate it when people say, let me be honest with you, because I'm thinking, are you lying to me the rest of the time? But he's a competitor. He wanted to be out there starting, but you got to wonder 2 years in a row in the big game why he was pulled. I mean, that one, but Shane Beamer obviously knows him a lot better than I do. So take word on that.
Wait, can I interrupt you real quick? Quick?
Sure.
Shane Beamer brought this up at SEC Media Days. Do we realize that Spencer Rattler is 15-0 in his last 15 starts?
Yeah.
See, I mean, like, for a guy who's not labeled as a winner, I think that's where some of the hate has gone too far. And I think we forget that this is a guy who came in with all that hype last year. And I'm not saying that he's mature and that this was all overblown. Spencer Rattler has maturing to do, and he needs to show that he can get through the tough times, which will come this year. And there are going to be moments where he realizes this is more like a 7-5, 8-4 team, and not necessarily a team competing for a national championship. But there are still so many different things that I think get lost in the shuffle of having a month into your season, your pre-draft season, wherein you're undefeated, you're playing for a top 5 team, and you're playing okay football. You're not necessarily playing all-world football, but fans are chanting for the backup, just like that. That's how quickly they turned on him at Oklahoma. Correct. And, yeah, some of that was definitely his own doing, no doubt about it. They were turning on him before the Texas game even happened. So I think that gets lost in the shuffle with the way that things have played out. Everybody talks about, the fact that he was benched.
Yeah.
How many different quarterbacks could have had a quarterback rating of 158 going into that Texas game and then have gotten benched after that? We can't treat this situation like it is for every single program. Will Levis would have gotten benched way earlier if he had been in a place like Oklahoma, but instead, because he was Kentucky and because he was a summer enrollee who didn't have that kind of hype, he gets to work through that bad first month that he had, and it was a bad first month, and he's able to kind of come out the other end and be better for it. So I'm just more of the belief that new surroundings can do Spencer Rattler some good, and I think we were too quickly to turn on him and label him as a bust just because he couldn't live up to that number 1 overall hype. There's a middle ground there, and I think he's capable of reaching it this year.
And that's what I wanted to say was Shane Beamer has coached him. I mean, so I'm gonna defer because I watched his father build Virginia Tech up, and I'm gonna defer to Shane Beamer on this one and say, you know what? Because you're right. I mean, the guy's won a lot of games, and we're making a big deal out of the Texas game 2 years in a row, and that's either going to be looked back in history as 2 bad games in a row. Look, Bo Nix was pulled in the Georgia State game. Auburn, TJ Finley was the hero of the day. Okay. So you never know what's going on, but I'll trust Shane Beamer. Got to ask you now, right there in your backyard, you're in Orlando. Is anybody from Orlando, or is that where everybody in the witness protection program goes if they're not going to Arizona? But anyway, look at the Gators right now. You've got Miami trying to come back with Mario Cristobal. You've got Florida State, Mike Norvell. They're trying, but man, it's a slow comeback. And then you got Gus at Central Florida. You got Florida International, Florida Atlantic. And I'm leaving people off, but it's University of South Florida. There's a lot of competition for players in the state, but I think Billy Napier is an outstanding builder of a culture in recruiting. And I think the Gators, Buddy Martin always says on this show, don't fall in love on the first date, but I think they got the right man.
I do, and I think there's a chance we look back in this cycle and Billy Napier is the right guy. Time will tell. He needs to elevate the talent level. You've got to correct what Dan Mullen ultimately fell short of. His relationships at IMG Academy and St. Thomas Aquinas, they were not what they needed to be. And Billy Napier has improved on that. I love the fact that he's already gotten 4 4-star recruits from the state of Florida in the last week to commit to him, that's usually a pretty good sign. I still think that they need to be able to have more of those splashy top 5 classes for Florida to truly feel like it's on that level. But patience is the key, right?
Yeah.
No Florida coach has lasted longer than 6 years post Steve Spurrier. That needs to change. I think Billy Napier has the ability to be that stabling force for that program. It just might take a little bit of time, and I don't think it's necessarily going to happen in year one. And I think that year one could be more of an up and down type of year if he improves Anthony Richardson and gets him to cut down on the mistakes. And if they're not a total train wreck on defense, in my opinion, that's a win for Florida. He's going to have a different year one than Dan Mullen. He's going to have a different year one than Jim McElwain. That's okay. Patience and playing the long game with Billy Napier and recognizing that elevating talent is the most important thing to do, I think is the biggest task for Billy Napier to be able to accomplish year one.
Yeah, and I think we've seen it with a lot of schools. You can have a coach in his first year win a bunch of games, but the problem is they can't sustain it. You want to have that sustained program. You don't want the success to come too early because it can fool the coaches and the players into thinking it's that easy. But I'm with you. And Connor, look, we got to get you back on. Now, this has been some of the best stuff around. You really know your football. And I think it's going to be fun to watch Spencer Rattler. What made me mad about last year was he spent a lot of time at some memorabilia conference, up in Philadelphia, signing $150 autographs. And you just want the guy, again, I'm going to defer on this one to Shane Beamer. And you made a very good argument. He's 15-0 in his last 15 starts of games that he finished. Now, the Texas game, okay, can't hold that against a kid forever. And again, he's got what the pros are looking for. You want to say something about height? Kyler Murray might be 5'8", 5'9" with shoes on. He just signed the $250 million contract. So college football is it's going to be a fun year. But Connor, how do people follow you to keep up with you? And let's get you back on. We're doing StreamYard now, so if you want to be on the video, we'll send you the link next time. It is very simple, but man, you've got great content, and people need to be following you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We're at Sat Down South on Twitter. At TJ O'Gara is my personal handle. SaturdayDownSouth.com. You should bookmark it if you haven't already. I always tell people, if you want to waste an afternoon at work or something like that, it is the best place because we have so much content up. And I promise you, it's not just, what's Alabama doing? What's Georgia doing? We truly have the SEC covered in ways that nobody else can. And I think that our site and our company has continued to grow. We have Saturday Out West, which is our Pac-12 site. We have Saturday Tradition, our Big Ten site, Saturday Road, our ACC site. We just have everybody covered from coast to coast, and Saturday Down South has been doing it for 12 years now. It's been fun to be a part of for the last 7 years, and we're looking forward to a great season. Hopefully, August is here, and that's never a bad thing.
All right, look, and I'm ready for next week. This has been fantastic, Connor. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great day. Let's take a quick break. And Connor, one last question: you have KJ Jefferson in your top 3 quarterbacks in the SEC or all of college football? Which one?
Top 3 in the SEC, top 10 in all of college football, though.
Yeah, that's a hell of a compliment because we're going to talk about the Razorbacks next. Thanks so much. Let's take a break. Wes Moore will be with us on the other side. It's the Sidelines, Monday, August 1st. Practice starts. Get ready.
Kitchens and bathrooms make a home, and the design teams at Kitchens Unlimited know how to make kitchens and baths. They know it all because they have seen it all. Kitchens Unlimited has been designing and remodeling the Mid-South's kitchens and baths for over 50 years. Check out their showroom at 3550 Summer Avenue or visit them on the web at kitchensunlimited.net.
If you have a crash, dent or ding, go to G.E. Patterson and BB for Tom Martin's Body Shop.
Come on down to Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, located on Historical Square in Collierville, Tennessee. Hewlett & Dunn is the second largest Filson dealer in the Southeast, stocked with Southern brands you know and trust. And a new inventory arriving all the time. Do yourself or someone you know and love a favor and visit this store. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4 City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
As an agricultural producer, no matter where you farm, minimum tillage is a primary concern each and every season. At House Industries in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, we manufacture equipment to help you maximize efficiency when planting and watering a crop. Pieces like the pulverizer, bedder roller, 3-bar do-all, and bed conditioner assist you in optimizing seedbed preparation and ultimately your bottom line. Visit HouseIndustriesInc.com to locate the dealer nearest you.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown back here with you. Man, great stuff. Connor O'Gara, Saturday Down South. Did not know they had Pac-12, Big Ten, ACC, Big Ten versions all over the country. But, man, really knows SEC football. That was really interesting. And I think that statistic was 6 or 7 of the 14 SEC teams last year played multiple quarterbacks. I mean, South Carolina, as Connor O'Gara mentioned, played 4 last year. Now they're bringing in Spencer Rattler, and everybody assumes he's going to get the starting job, and he should. But, again, he's right. And I'm going to say this about Shane Beamer. He knows him better than we do. I've personally never met Spencer. Jimmy, I don't know if you have or not. I mean, but we'll see what he does. He's going to be in the tough league in the SEC. But I think he's going to be seeing in practice probably better defensive linemen than he did on his own team at Oklahoma. The Southeastern Conference schools typically just have better defensive linemen. They have deeper rosters on the front 7, 2 and 3 deep. If you want to compete for Atlanta, you better be 2 or 3 deep on the front 7. That's always been the case in the SEC. But I'll say this too, though. Oklahoma's got players. I mean, you look at SEC schools, and I think Texas as well. Texas has a winning record against every school in the Southeastern Conference, folks, with the exception of Vanderbilt. What? Well, they hadn't played them in a long time, but I'm telling you, they play good football at Oklahoma and Texas. And I really think once Texas can go out in recruiting, which they're doing now, and offer what Texas A&M can, hey, you get to play an SEC schedule. We talk about it a lot. Jimmy, you're right. You get to go to Tiger Stadium. You get to go to the Swamp. You get to go to Sanford, Neyland, Bryant-Denny, Vaught Hemingway. Get to go to all these great cathedrals of college football. Or do you want to go to Ames, Iowa, Manhattan, Kansas, Lawrence, Kansas? Nothing against those places, but they're just not the same. This is where I see Texas. If I was looking at Texas like a stock, I'd be looking at a stock that's running below its 200-day moving average. That's about to have a breakout. That's what I see happening with Texas. You got Arch Manning there. Look at the recruits that are starting to follow Arch there. And I'm looking forward to having Wes Moore join us here in just a minute. ESPN 103.7 The Buzz in Little Rock. Jimmy, when he comes on, we'll just go straight to Wes. But I'm telling you, SEC football is just going to get better, and it's going to make everybody else in the country work harder. Even the Pac-12, they're going through a hell, just living hell. ACC right now hadn't been losing people, but they look ripe for someone to try to raid them. How big will their basketball brand be in terms of saving the conference? There's a lot to talk about, but most of all, we got games coming up 3 weeks from Thursday, and you get down to it, folks. Your college football season, it starts when the magazines come out in late May. Then you got SEC Media Days, which we had July 18th to the 21st in Atlanta. Now practice starts today, and Wes Moore over in Little Rock covers the Razorbacks. And Wes, we're at Red River Ford Toyota, one of our sponsors in Wynne, Arkansas. Folks, Razorback fans are bouncing off the walls. And Wes, we just had Connor O'Gara, our guest from Saturday Down South. He ranks KJ Jefferson as the 3rd best quarterback in the SEC and in his top 10 nationally. He said, go back to this time a year ago, people wondered if KJ could even be successful in Briles' offense. Kendall Briles' offense, and he proved that. I think one turnover, one interception in his last 257 passes. But Wes, I'm going to let you call the Hogs from here.
I think it's funny. This time last year, some people were debating if, how good KJ would be. And I remember there was one writer who said he was the 14th best quarterback in the SEC. That kind of riled up a lot of Razorback fans. And I think he proved himself last year, and he's off to prove himself this year. The Buzz had our countdown to kickoff event Thursday night here in Little Rock. And we had KJ come down. We had Jalen Catalon come down. And we had them speak to the crowd, had a kind of Q&A with those guys. And I can tell you, he's got a chip on his shoulder. And I've told you guys, too, before, I've been told he had lost somewhere around 20, 25 pounds. And it was my first time to see him in person in a long time. And he has definitely lost 20 to 25 pounds. He, I think, and I was told he played around 260 last year. And he's around 240 now. I asked him how he lost that weight, and he said he quit eating so much fried food, and then he cut back on his portions. You know how it is in America these days. You go out to eat, and they bring this big plate of food to you. Well, KJ said instead of eating everything on that plate, he cut back and would have a to-go plate also. So he's worked hard to lose some weight. He still has that chip on his shoulder. And there are those out there that think he's the 7th or 8th best quarterback in the SEC. So I think he's out to make a name for himself. Look, he's a starting college football quarterback. He wants to play in the NFL.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of people talking about him being in the NFL, certainly not a first-round pick. So that's what he wants to show everybody, that, look, he's not a dual-threat quarterback. I mean, he is in college, but he's much more than a dual-threat quarterback, that he can throw the ball. So I look for KJ. Look, he proved everybody wrong last year. I'm not going to say he can't do it this year.
I agree with you. And you know what's really special about this kid is that the people like Yancey Porter, who covers Ole Miss for us, he knows KJ. He knows his mom, from Panola County, right there outside, right next to Ole Miss, Sardis, Mississippi. We all know about South Panola in Batesville, legendary program there. This guy grew up playing in a very competitive league. And you're right. A lot of people talk about, well, he's too big. He's not this. He's not that. You know what? The person that matters the most, who believes in himself, is what KJ Jefferson believes. And then when you've got a guy like Kendall Briles, and you've got a head coach like Sam Pittman, and you're building a structure on an offensive line like what they have, I mean, anything's possible with this guy. And we know about Malik Hornsby, the backup. He's fast. What are we going to do about him? Well, they'll find somewhere. You want to put that guy on the field. But KJ Jefferson, to me, is clearly the leader of this Arkansas team. And Connor mentioned about half the 14 schools in the SEC last year played multiple quarterbacks. South Carolina played 4 different quarterbacks last year. Is there any question for Arkansas who the quarterback is? No. And that right there tells you got a damn good quarterback.
Yeah, that's one thing you said about Malik Hornsby. They're going to get him on the field, and it reminded me of the days because we've been looking at some old videos. You could have very easily rotated Darren McFadden and Felix Jones and Peyton Hillis, but Houston Nutt found a way to get all 3 of them on the field at the same time. And, man, that was a lot of fun. And that's the same thing here with Malik Hornsby. You got a guy that fast, that talented, that athletic. You got to get him on the field. And, man, if they can have anything kind of close to the results they had with the 3-headed monster, McFadden and Felix Jones and Peyton Hillis, that could be a lot of fun for this offense because he does bring Malik Hornsby does bring something special. And, look, they're loaded at running back. They feel like they've got a really good tight end that not a lot of people are talking about, and Trey Knox. He's up over 240 pounds, and he feels like he's a true SEC tight end now. And look, he had a good year last year once they moved him over from wide receiver to tight end. So they feel like they've got a lot of weapons, and they led the country in rushing last year. I think they feel like they can do something similar this year with 4 returning offensive linemen.
Well, that right there, 4 returning offensive linemen, Sam Pittman, the culture, which is built up front, offense, defensive lines. That's what you have to compete to get to Atlanta. And a lot of people are talking about Texas A&M because of this past recruiting class. Don't sleep on the Hogs. You're an idiot if you do. Jimmy, quickly, Lauren, quickly. But anyway, by the way, I want to say this too. Yesterday was the sad day, but that's when we lost Paul Eels, one of the great broadcasters in college football and basketball, longtime voice for the Razorbacks. Wes, I don't know if you knew Paul Eels or not, but a lot of people over here at Red River Ford, we were talking about him, Red River Ford Toyota and Wynn, remember him quite well. But Paul Eels, touchdown Arkansas. What a great tag line that he had. But again, that's what makes the college game so special is the people, and we're blessed to have them.
Yeah, there was a big charity golf tournament that our basketball coach, the University of Little Rock, put on years and years ago. And he called and said, "Wes, I want you to play with me." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll do it." And I had young children at the time, and I had to make arrangements and get a babysitter. And, I had to do a lot of rearranging to play with him. And I got there, and I never saw Coach. And finally, we're getting ready to tee off. I'm like, where's Coach? Because that's my partner, right? And they go, "Oh, he's sick. He can't make it today." I'm like, "You got to be kidding me." I made all these plans just to play with him. Got a babysitter, and they go, "But instead, we're going to put you with Paul Eels." I got to play 18 holes with Paul Eels, and we had just a fabulous time. It's one of those memories I cherish, and it's just another. It just shows you things happen for a reason, and it's a memory I always have of playing golf with Paul, and he is everything that you've heard. He's that and some.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I tell you what, you would get my vote in a heartbeat, Wes, with your background and your love of the Razorbacks and your knowledge. If they ever make a change, you get Jimmy and mine's vote. But Jimmy Hodge, come on in here with Wes Moore of ESPN 103.7 The Buzz in the capital city, Little Rock.
Yeah, I remember when Paul Eels was the play-by-play guy at Vandy, and I noticed him, back then because in those days, not every game was televised. So play-by-play in the South for college football fans was just critical. In many ways, that's how you identified with particular programs that you otherwise wouldn't be following that closely. And I was kind of curious, how did that process go that resulted in him coming to Arkansas from Vandy?
Oh, man, that's way before my time. But I believe it was with Channel 7, KTV, and the University of Arkansas. Back then they kind of worked together. The voice of Arkansas was the sports director at KTV. And I think that's kind of what led him here. And it was all about, moving to Arkansas to be the sports director and the voice of the Razorbacks.
Yeah. Well, he was, like I said, he was one of those guys that you noticed, when you heard him, and you truly could get a visual picture of what was going on by the way he described the game on the radio, as opposed to much more maybe than you do now. But anyway, that was just a tragedy, but it was a great period in Arkansas sports history. Anytime you have a play-by-play guy that is that good at his job. But I was going to weigh in on Jefferson myself. I thought that this would be a fantastic season for him to be evaluated by NFL scouts just by looking at Arkansas' schedule. I mean, every game, with the exception possibly of Missouri State, and even for Hog fans, that's not going to be boring because Bobby Petrino is going to be coming to town
on a motorcycle.
And then and Liberty with Hugh Freeze. I mean, they're going to put points on the board. But with this Arkansas schedule, KJ is going to be facing a lot of talented defenses, and especially in those road environments, he's going to give a chance to show NFL scouts just how he can play in hostile environments and develop during games and reacting to the ups and downs that take place during a game. And yeah, last year I thought was just huge for him. He had a great year statistically. The offense was really good. And yeah, when I saw him on camera after his appearance at SEC Media Days, you could tell he absolutely had lost 20 to 25 pounds. And I'm sure that's really going to help his mobility a lot. And just overall, you know, when you have a season like Arkansas did last year, it's just going to give you a lot of confidence. And I'm also anxious to see how Drew Sanders performs on that defense, because I think he's going to be a big boost to that unit, along with the fact that Jalen Catalon is back too.
You know, last year, Jefferson set the all-time Razorback completion percentage record for a season. He completed 67% of his passes. And for him to do that as the first year as a starter, I thought that was just incredible. Look, and it's not just a bunch of short, easy throws. They throw the ball downfield a lot. You got to remember they had Traylon Burks back there. They were going deep. And that's the word on Jefferson. Great touch on the short throws and even better touch on the deep throws. What he has to improve is that 15 yards, that 10 yards, right there across the middle, that slant, that out route. Those are the ones he's got to work on. If he fixes that, I mean, he's got a big arm. In mobility, the size, I don't know why he couldn't be an NFL quarterback. That's all he's got to prove right there to me. And by losing that weight, I think it makes him a little bit quicker, gives him a little bit more escapability in the pocket. You know, last year he looked like a defensive lineman. I mean, he was 6'4", 260-something pounds. And this year he looks kind of like a tight end, okay? I mean, he's still big. Don't get me wrong. 6'4", 240 is a nice size, man. I'm 6'4", 225, and he's bigger than I am. So he's got the stature very impressive stature now. And yeah, you nailed it with Sanders on defense. If he's kind of that surprise and fits in right there with Bumper Pool and fills the shoes of losing Henry and Luke Morgan. I mean, they had a nice three-headed monster at linebacker last year. And if Sanders can step in, and here's one thing, Sanders rushed the quarterback at Alabama. They would let him go. And that's one of the things that Arkansas is working in this year that's a little bit different. They've got some packages. And guys, I touched on this a couple of weeks ago. Having your defensive your defensive coordinator back for another year, that's allowing this team to work in more things on defense to disguise some things. And one other thing, they feel like with the cornerbacks that they've added, and specifically McGlovern from LSU, they're going to play more man-to-man at corner. And that's going to allow them to do some different things defensively. And one of those is to blitz Sanders and let him get after the quarterback.
Yeah, you put pressure on the other team's quarterback. It all starts up front. And that's what we talked so much about. You got 4 starters back on the offensive line for Arkansas. Defensive line, that's what they've been really doing a good job of, is trying to go find them in recruiting or in the portal. You talk about, though, let's go back to KJ Jefferson. He's lost about, 20 pounds, 25 pounds going up the middle. What would you be comfortable with, Wes, as a coach? 10, 15 times a game, have him designed runs? Because, again, a lot of people say a quarterback that runs, who's a dual threat quarterback, does it because he can't read his progressions, his second and third receivers and all. Well, KJ is developing as a quarterback who can. What's scary is that when he wants to run, you got to tackle him. And a guy like that, what's tough about him is they get those legs high up in the air like a walking horse, man. They knock your helmet off. That's what's tough about tackling those big guys. And as he gets better on his reads and all, athletically and physically, he's in better shape. You know, Arkansas could get to double-digit wins. Some things go right. Jalen Catalon, that's a great name, Jalen Catalyst. That's what they ought to call him. But he's a catalyst for the defense. He missed the second half of the season last year. He's healthy. You get a good surge up the middle, and that changes the way. Look, if KJ Jefferson's a little bit better than he was last year, that might be an extra 3 or 4 first downs a game. That's an extra 6 or 7 points a game. How many games last year that Arkansas lost that were very close losses could they have won if they'd had an extra 7 points in those games? Now, the Alabama game, they lost 42-35. Alabama was just better than them. That's how it goes. And I don't know if Alabama approached the Arkansas game like they may have the LSU game or whatever, but you saw how close the LSU game was against Alabama. Every week in this league, it's a different set of circumstances. And the way Arkansas plays, I think they have a chance to win every game on their schedule. But that first one against Cincinnati is going to be the toughest.
No doubt, and maybe the toughest game Arkansas has on their schedule at home besides the Alabama game. Cincinnati's reloaded. They hit the portal. They lost a lot of starters and lost a lot of experience, but they hit the portal and got some guys who have been playing a lot of games. They may have been in the MAC at a lower level, but they feel like they've done a good job of hitting the portal like so many other teams have done to fill some holes. And Cincinnati feels like they're reloading and not rebuilding after losing so many guys to the NFL. So, no, I agree. I think that first game against Cincinnati is going to be huge, not just only to, start things off. And there are going to be some eyes on Arkansas that game because you're going to have, Cincinnati's made a name for themselves, and then Arkansas is going to start the year ranked. And that's a marquee matchup for week one. And you go out and win it. That's going to, that's just going to keep that momentum going for Arkansas. You lose that game and you just start the season on the wrong foot. And look, 2 weeks later, you're going to face A&M. Then you got Alabama, then Mississippi State, and BYU. It could spiral out of control. So you got to get that first win and build something kind of positive. And on Jefferson, one more note. They said one of the things they're working on right now is that read option. You talked about designed runs. They don't have so many designed runs for KJ. It's more of a reading. And they felt like last year there were too many times that maybe in his mind it was a designed run, and he took off running with it, and he should have, given it to the running back, or vice versa. That sometimes maybe he was tired, and he just got through with a nice little 15-yard run, and on the next read option, he was breathing heavy, and he knew already he was going to give it to the running back and not keep it. Well, maybe he should have kept it and nailed him again. So that's one of the things that they really want to work on is that reading the defense so he makes the right decision. And I harp back on the Ole Miss game last year. 2-point conversion to win the game at the end of the game. He made the wrong read. It's as simple as that. If he pitches it to the tight end coming in motion, little shovel pass, it's a touch. It's a 2-point conversion. Arkansas wins. Instead, he made up his mind. They ran the play before, the same exact play. He threw it to Traylon Burks, touchdown, Arkansas. He made up his mind. He was going to throw it to Traylon again. Ole Miss was ready for it. Basically, triple team Traylon, and it's incomplete pass, game over. So that's just some of the small things they're working on with KJ that can make a huge difference.
Well, a lot of time in the film tape room, watching it, trying not to repeat your mistakes. And also, he's taking a 25-pound weight plate off of his waist. You think that's not going to make a difference? You've never been overweight and lost weight. It will make a huge difference. Jimmy, got time for one more quick question before Wes has to go.
Well, I will say if I was Cincinnati, I'd be feeling a lot better if I ran into the Hogs a little bit later in the season because they're playing without a 4-year starter quarterback who was the first player or quarterback picked in the draft, I believe. And then they had 2 of the best corners in college football that were the key to their undefeated regular season. And they're in the NFL now. So even though they obviously have brought in quality players from other schools, man, coming to Fayetteville in that first game and trying to learn those new schemes against an opponent like Arkansas is going to be a pretty heavy lift. But nonetheless, the job Luke Fickell has done there has been remarkable. And it's going to be a really interesting matchup because clearly Cincinnati has a lot of good players, and I'm sure the Hogs want to get off to a good start, take control of the game early so they can just get into their rhythm and play at the level, especially offensively, that they feel they should be playing at. So I think if they have a solid performance that week, they'll be in great shape to be ready for the SEC opener against South Carolina, because you're going to need that type of start to really generate momentum to face this schedule they're going up against this year, because I think the Arkansas schedule has to be ranked in the top 3 or 4 in the country.
Chris Lowe from ESPN ranked it number 1.
Yeah.
That it's the toughest schedule in America. You got the SEC West, and then you throw in BYU road games, Cincinnati, Liberty. You know, I guess the quote cupcakes, Missouri State, and they made the FCS playoffs last year. And you know, as Coach Pittman said, every single team on their schedule played in the postseason last year. I bet that may be the only schedule in America you can say that.
That's
so,
it. Yeah.
It is. It's very difficult. It's week after week, and you know, that BYU game, it may be the second toughest game on that Razorback schedule next to Alabama, because you know, you play Alabama, that's the 6th straight game. Then you go to Mississippi State, that's 7 in a row. Then you go to Provo and play BYU. That's your 8th straight game in a row, and then you finally get your bye. I think that's going to be a tough game, coming off an emotional, you know, trips. And I mean, it is. I mean, those first 8 games, they're going to be kind of pushed to the limit. And I hope they got something left when they go to BYU.
Yeah, just remember, BYU, as Chuck Oliver says, you're playing against a bunch of linemen, 23, 24 years old. You're out there 18, 19 years old. Light years of difference. Don't underestimate the Cougars out in Provo. So that'll be fun. Wes, love having you on here every week. I know you got your great show, ESPN 103.7 The Buzz, today in Little Rock. And I'll tell you one thing, folks, get this app on your phone, whether you follow the Hogs or whoever, you're going to learn a lot. Wes Moore, always appreciate you. Tell them how they can follow you on Twitter.
You bet. You can go on Twitter. It's Wes, 2 S's in Wes, _ Moore, Moore. And then, brand new app. I mean, we just got this app. So if you got it, great. If you don't have it, man, I encourage you to go to your store and download the Buzz app, and you can listen to not only our show, but all the shows we have on the Buzz. Great product all day long.
All right. Hey, have a great show. We'll do this again next week. And let me say this, folks, the Ed Murphy Classic track and field this past Friday and Saturday at the University of Memphis South Campus. Also had the pole vault on Beale Street. Eddie Murphy said they're ranked 20th in the world, 5th in the USA. Great information. Thank you, Jason Vaught, for organizing the pole vault set up on Beale Street. They set up all day Saturday. He owns Memphis Vault. This is ahead of the Drake relays and the Penn relays. As Eddie says, that's nuts. Last year, they finished 71st in the world. We're gaining a great reputation on tour for being great hosts. No doubt about that, Eddie. Nothing beats a little Southern hospitality. But look for great things in the future. The Ed Murphy Classic, track and field every year, the end of July, University of Memphis. Great show, everybody. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Check out Southern Sports Today, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. with Chuck Oliver, Dan Matthews, right after we go off the air over in Atlanta. And remember, be on 680thefan.com, the podcast part. Our show is every day. If you miss us live, you can hear it there. And we'll be on Kicks 96 FM starting Saturday in Central Alabama, our new home. Looking forward to it. Country music and college football talk. Hey, man, just throw in some cold road sodas. It doesn't get any better. Hey, go out and help somebody with the expectation of getting nothing in return. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. And, folks, thank a veteran when you see them out there, because they fight for one another. They fight for you. That's most important. And remember, again, we live in the greatest country in the world. Act like it. Be proud. See you tomorrow, folks. We're out of here.